Coming up on District Talk, the debate over gay marriage. The Supreme Court is taking up 2 cases. We'll have more on those cases and what the decisions mean for gay Americans.
And DC special election. The race to fill an empty seat on the DC Council is heating up. We will be joined live by 2 candidates. District Talk starts right now.
Good afternoon, I'm Henry Corrali.
And I'm Julia Brahma. Welcome to District Talk.
Today's lineup, we've got the debate over gay marriage, youth homelessness in the city, DC's upcoming special election, the fight over a new luxury hotel in Adams Morgan, and the decline of the media.
The Supreme Court is hearing oral statements on whether or not same-sex marriage is constitutional. Rallies were held outside the courts during the week. The Supreme Court battle began in 2008 when the California Supreme Court supported equal marriage rights, but the state's voters protested. We now go to Alexia Campbell with the latest on the issue in Washington. Alexia?
Thank you, Julia. Most Americans opposed granting marriage rights to same-sex couples as little as 5 years ago, but that has changed fast. Polls now show that a majority favor gay marriage. In fact, Proposition 8 probably would not have passed if put to vote today. I got the chance to speak to people on both sides of the issue outside the Supreme Court this week.
Washington has become a lively backdrop to the nation's debate of same-sex marriage. Thousands of people from around the country arrived outside the Supreme Court this week to make their voices heard. Supporters hope to witness history as justices considered the merits of California's Proposition 8 and the Federal Defense of Marriage Act.
My husband and I are married for 7 years, and we're together 20 years this June. If something were to happen to one of us, the other one is not protected right now under federal law. So I think it's important that marriage equality gets passed and DOMA gets overturned.
There are 2 questions the Supreme Court is considering in both of these cases. Is it unconstitutional for a state to ban gay marriage? And can the federal government deny benefits to gay spouses who are married in states where it is legal? Tension between supporters and opposers heated up outside during the hearings.
Who are the biological offspring of...
Most people who showed up to protest gay marriage say it harms families. Others say it simply goes against God's will.
They don't know what they're doing. Their mind is sick because they think that they're doing the right thing and they're violating what the scriptures say.
Supporters of gay marriage outside the court outnumbered people who oppose it. A Washington Post and ABC poll released this month showed that more than half of Americans now favor the idea.
I'm actually straight, but you don't have to be part of a community to support their rights. I'm part of this community right here.
The justices seemed divided about same-sex marriage, but suggested the Defense of Marriage Act could be unconstitutional. They are expected to make decisions in the cases in early summer.
People have been trying to figure out how the justices will rule on the cases this summer. Joining me here in the studio today to weigh in is Peter Lauman, an attorney with the Alliance for Justice here in Washington. Peter, thank you for coming.
Thanks to be here.
So tell me a bit, what do you think is going to happen this summer? Do you think the justices are going to make history, or do you think they'll be more cautious?
I think that no matter what they do, they're going to be making history. For the first time in our country's history, the United States government is arguing that same-sex marriage is constitutionally protected, and the court will rule directly on, or may rule directly on the question. I think that everybody who has seriously looked at what the justices are going to do has said that there are 5 votes to strike down bans on same-sex marriage, and it's just a question of how they'll get there.
Okay, and so what do everyone's been talking about these polls about how most Americans now, for the first time, favor same-sex marriage. What do you think has caused that change of heart, and why do you think it's happened so quickly?
Well, one thing is that 5 years is a very long time for our generation, and the younger generation is much more progressive and on a variety of issues, and same-sex marriage is one of them. And we've also had a president who declared support for same-sex marriage and was reelected by a wide margin. So there's just a variety of social and cultural and just demographic currents that are pushing our country forward on this issue and in a variety of issues.
Yeah, okay. And then one of the central issues in the case is federal benefits for same-sex couples, and ones that are really limited right now just to heterosexual couples. I'm going to play a clip right now of one of the plaintiffs in the case. It's a really strong story, and it was a roundtable discussion at the Alliance for Justice.
So to make this really concrete, one of the plaintiffs in these cases, Edie Windsor, was with her partner for 40 years, married her in Canada, that was recognized in New York. When her partner passed away, she was next of kin in the eyes of New York State, but she was a legal stranger in the eyes of the federal government, so therefore got hit with $363,000 of federal estate tax, which she would not have been hit with had she been recognized as married for both federal and state purposes.
So, Peter, Edith's story is one of the stronger ones, the most significant ones right now in the case that everyone's been looking at. Can you tell us a bit, aside from survivorship, what are some of the federal benefits that are limited right now to heterosexual couples?
You know, one thing I'd like to start with is that Edith's courage is really fascinating and outstanding, and we've Alliance for Justice has a letter that we have sign-ons for, you know, thanking her and supporting her for her coverage. And the benefits that we're talking about are everything from visitation rights to inheritance to the $360,000 we talked about in that roundtable of estate benefits. But more, you know, broadly than that, it's also societal recognition of being part of the American fabric. In the arguments they talked about how interracial marriage wasn't recognized by the court until the 1960s, and desegregation wasn't, you know, decreed by the court until the 1950s, and the just importance of being recognized as a member of society who's treated equally under our Constitution, under our laws, and by our government, by our president, and by our courts is a huge benefit that can't be measured in, you know, the 1,100 plus laws that are affected by the Defense of Marriage Act.
Right, and well, it'll be interesting to see what happens this summer. So, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Julia, back to you.
Thank you, Alexia, Mr. Laumann.
Coming up, DC's budget is up, but funding for youth homelessness is down. Local youth homeless shelters are taking a hit. We'll tell you more of how they're dealing with less funding after the break.